Hello, welcome to this week's Record Celtic podcast brought to you by NordVPN. My name is Daniel Cott. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports' Ryan McDonald. Ryan, how's it going?
Well, good, mate. Busy day so far, but delighted to be on the Celtic pod.
It's on me and you to kind of hold down the fort here with, Michael Gannon's away in his 9th holiday of the year. Craig Swan's he's on horse duty this week, or the Grand National and all that kind of nonsense. Chris Sutton, he only turns up when he's, not doing one of his other 5,000 media duties. So we knew, mate. Basically, we're the tried and tested.
We're the A-team anyway.
Exactly. It's Tuesday, obviously, but the weekend Celtic had another big game. Every game at this time of the season, I guess, is huge. But 3 points against St Mirren. Again, I feel I've said this a million times this season. It wasn't pretty, but they got over the line. That's all that matters, really, I guess.
Yeah, it's another slog, isn't it? The football certainly hasn't been pretty this season, that's for sure. But they got there in the end. I don't really think St Mirren were exactly peppering Sinisalo's goal by any matter of means, but it was still a kind of nervous tension in the stadium. When there's only one goal, you separating the teams for so long, there's always going to be that level of anxiety. But you've got a picture of the Green Brigade there. I think they made a bit of a difference. Martin Neil referenced them after the game as well, bringing some noise and colour back into the stadium, which has been pretty soulless this season, let it be said. Mm-hmm. So I think, at least that did lift spirits. It is another 3 points for Celtic. That would have been unthinkable if Celtic had somehow stumbled against St Mirren. That would have been a game-setting match. Again, it wasn't pretty, but they got there in the end. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain delivering the goods with a decent finish, but the level of performance has got to be a concern for Martin O'Neill, and it is because he has mentioned it. He mentioned it after the game on Saturday, that he needs to find a fix as well, because this, I think I've said it in previous pods, Dan, but everybody's looking at the points difference at the minute, but you need to look at the goal difference as well.
Yeah.
You really do.
It's basically another point.
Yeah, Celtic are really. Rangers have gained 2 extra goals on Celtic at the weekend with a 6-3 win at Falkirk. Could you imagine Celtic scoring 6 anywhere in the league? Absolutely not. So that's got to be a concern. It's appalling. You look at it, the goal difference of 24, which is Celtic are on compared to Rangers and 35 and Hearts and 30. So that, for Rangers anyway, that's 11 goal swing in their favour. It's that point. And you just feel, with Martin Neil losing the league in goal difference in 2003, football just got a funny way of stories unravelling, and you just wonder if it's written in the stars it's going to come down to goal difference again this year. You never know. And I know the priority for Celtic is points, but in the back of your mind, you are wondering, this could come down to goal difference. It is in Celtic and serious bother. But it's been the story of the season. It's been the Achilles heel all season. They've just not got any scorer they can hang their hat on. And it's just as well like Oxlade-Chamberlain produced at the weekend.
There's 2 things about the performance that you mentioned, Ryan, I want to get your take on. We'll come to Callum McGregor in a wee minute, but as you mentioned, it wasn't pretty. I mentioned Chris Sutton at the top of the show on, obviously, an inferior podcast. He even went as far as to say Celtic made St Mirren look like Brazil, and he ruled out Celtic now winning the title. He says for him, Celtic don't have the legs, they don't have the goals, they're not going to win it. Basically, roundabout way I'm asking you, Martin O'Neill, we all know he's a legend for coming back in. I would put forward that Celtic are only in a title race because he's been there. But is he above criticism? Does he deserve to be scrutinised for Celtic's level of performance, or is this just really he's doing the best with what he can, with the tools he's got?
I can understand both sides of the argument. Like, Martin Neil deserves enormous credit, and he has had enormous credit for the results that he has managed to produce since, over his 2 spells, not only domestically but in Europe. You think of those results away to Stuttgart, Feyenoord. Yeah, exactly. So he has produced decent results in Europe. Domestically, just about, most of the time Celtic have just got over the line with him in charge. Obviously, there's been a couple of blemishes here and there, like Dundee United a couple of weeks ago. But overall, I don't think there's anybody else that could have come in and done the job that he's done. But the problem is the style of football. It's been torture to watch at times. Let's be honest. But is it because of the tools he's been left to work with? And I'd probably say yes. You know, it's not as if Celtic were playing swashbuckling football under Brendan Rodgers at the start of the season. They weren't.
Exactly.
At the Champions League to Minerals from Kazakhstan, which we all know. We're not going to go over that again. You know, they lost to Dundee 2-0, lost to Hearts convincingly. So it's not as if, you know, the football suddenly plummeted, the style of football suddenly kind of plummeted. It's nothing to do with that. It's just the fact that the squad simply isn't good enough. I don't think they've got we've been through it all before, but they don't have the resources, don't have the quality in the squad to play the style of football which Celtic fans have been accustomed to for so many years. And I think, to be honest, I don't think Martin O'Neill is really that bothered about the style of football. Obviously, like we touched upon, you would prefer the team to be scoring a lot more goals, but his focus and his priority will just be getting the team over the line. He'll be looking to win these last 5 league games, plus obviously the potential 2 games in the Scottish Cup, which would be a double. But, you know, fans are paying hard-earned money to go and watch Celtic. You know, it's what, £900 odd for a season ticket in some areas, 40 odd quid for a match ticket. So they deserve to be entertained. Football's an entertainment business, and right now the style of football just it's not been great at all. So I think, yeah, there's obviously bigger priorities, which is obviously getting the wins, which they're doing, but yeah, it's been difficult this season. I can understand why perhaps fans are expecting a wee bit more.
There was a thing last week, Ryan, about Martin O'Neill and I think Mark Fotheringham being spotted at a Preston match, apparently watching 2 or 3 players. I mean, that might suggest that perhaps there's a role for both of them next season. Where do you stand in that? If Martin O'Neill was offered a rolling contract to be the manager next season, would you be quite happy with
that? He cleverly kind of avoids this question whenever you put it to him. The last time we did was a few weeks ago, and obviously this is the written presser. It's aside from the broadcast, so you get a kind of good round the table discussion with him, and he's a bit more open, and yeah, he's always great to talk to. But you know, he is the expert avoiding these questions, and he kind of skirted around it, and he said that, you know, basically he heavily hinted he would be interested in staying at Celtic in some sort of capacity. Whether that's manager or not, I don't know. Yes, he's 74. I get that, right? But I mean, he doesn't act like a 74-year-old. You know, he's got bundles of energy. He's clearly missed management. I think he's loving it. He says he doesn't enjoy it. He's not really enjoying it. You know, he's been open about the nerves he gets before games, but I think he's loving being back in management. And there is the prospect of rebuilding this team from scratch, really.
Yeah.
The problem is, I think if you're going to do that, I think you need to have a manager that is prepared to be here at Celtic for 2-3 years minimum. Is Martin O'Neill going to be the man that's able to do that? Will he, you know, that will take him up to 77-year-old? I'm not so sure. I don't think it would be wise for Celtic to keep a manager like Martin in place for an additional year. I think you need somebody to come in, buy the players for the long term, and you know, implement the style of football for the long term, and build from there. I think Martin. He's got so much knowledge, as we all know. He's an expert in the game, and he's still got so much more to give. So I think there could be a role for Martin O'Neill potentially upstairs in some sort of capacity, like an advisory role, which he was the one that actually put forward. He put that forward in the discussion we had with him a few weeks ago, just as an example. So I think that absolutely there is a role for him. You know, Celtic let him go in December. I don't think they can afford to do it again. They need some real kind of football people in place now if there's going to be a structural overhaul. And he would absolutely have a massive part to play in that. You talk about kind of Sean Maloney, Mark Fotheringham as well. I think, you know, Sean Maloney's referenced a few times that he wouldn't mind going back to his position as the professional loan player pathways manager. I think that was the official title. But he is highly respected at Lennoxtown by the Celtic squad. He's a former Belgium coach. You wonder if there's links there with Roberto Martinez that just aren't going away if Sean Maloney could play a part in that. And then there's Mark Fotheringham, who I think kind of knits it all together. He's the guy that the Celtic players really love and bounce off, and kind of brings the camaraderie, you know, lifts the spirits, a bit of humour in the ground, the training ground, which every team needs. So there's room for all three of them to stay at Celtic. It's a case of where and what roles they would fit in.
My only, I've said this a few times on here and on Hotline Live. I just feel that there's so much work to do. I mean, almost every facet, every aspect of the club needs to be either replaced or upgraded or enhanced. I just think there's so much work to do. Martin and Sean Maloney and Mark Falding are already in place. If they've already got 4 or 5 signing targets, I think there might be a temptation just to go, right, you know what, there's so much to do. We can't do it all in one summer. Let's stick with this team for another season. And I would say as well, again, just to get your take on this, I think it's more likely to happen if Martin O'Neill just misses out on the league. Because he's back at Celtic, it's been like a sense of duty to him. You know, Celtic call, I kind of have to go. But he won't want to walk away having left Celtic finishing potentially third in the league. He'll hate that. So I don't know. I just think there's more to come. I don't think it'll be as simple as he just goes off into the sunlight. I think there's more to come from Martin O'Neill, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just find it mind-boggling that there's still not been a head of recruitment appointed. I think it's just crazy. ahead of a generational rebuild at Celtic that a generation of fans will never have seen before. I think it's as I say, it's mind-boggling that there's still not been any announcement, and I know they've appointed a few highly respected and highly thought of scouts over the last few months, but they really need a head figure there to oversee this. I mean, to oversee the appointment of a manager, to oversee the overhaul of the squad. There's just so much to be done. Like you say, every facet of the club, I think, needs modernised, from the playing squad to the stadium. I think it's just a monumental rebuild at the minute, and for that reason, I just feel as if Celtic might be best going in the direction of having a younger coaching staff in place that is experienced. You know, they're not. You know, it's not an experiment like Wilfred Nonsey from the MLS. There is managers out there, perhaps at Premier League and Championship level, or of other levels across Europe, that would be open to taking the Celtic job, because it's still a massive job, still a huge pool. You know, Celtic might, if they finish third, they're still, you know, it's obviously not the glitz and glam of the Champions League, but they still have Europa League if they win the Scottish Cup, or at the very least the Conference League, which you expect them to get through. So European football is still a huge pool. There's still trophies to be won at Celtic. You know, as I say, there's 60,000 fans you're playing in front of every week. So it is a massive pool. And obviously we talk about Roberto Martinez. That's the name that keeps getting floated around. Would he be interested to come to Celtic? That's the huge question. I know a lot of former players have been tipping him for the job, but you know, he's got a chance to lead Portugal to win the World Cup. He's currently managing one of the greatest all-time players in the world, Cristiano Ronaldo. His stock came high this summer as well, so you just never know how it's going to pan out. And obviously there's talk about McGregor for Motherwell as well, so it's going to be a summer of intrigue, that's for sure.
Callum McGregor, Ryan, there's been a lot of talk on social media, and I know social media is far from the be-all and end-all, but I'm a bit uncomfortable at the amount of stick that I've seen Callum McGregor getting in the last days and weeks. I know that he's perhaps not been at his scintillating best this season, but for me, Callum McGregor, when all said and done, all things being equal, is still one of the best players in Scotland. And if he's not been at his best, you know, I think it's more to do with the players around him and the chaos that's been surrounding the Celtic first team this season. What do you think?
I mean, it's clear that he's playing with an injury at the minute. Martin O'Neill said that.
That's a good point.
He's kind of playing through the pain barrier. So with that, right away, you're not going to get the best out of Callum McGregor. Number two, I've said it for listeners will be sick of me saying this. Celtic have been overrun in the midfield over the entire season. It stretches back even longer than that. I would even say it stretches back to last season as well. I really think they're powder puff in midfield. They've got no legs, they've got no energy. And Callum McGregor really needs to have legs and energy around about him. He's 33 this summer. And I feel as if he's just been a victim of a squad that's been asset stripped, and this is the position he's in. He's been left to carry what's been left of this squad. And clearly, it's an inferior squad to what he's played with in the past. You know, you look at the midfield partners he's had, like Matt O'Reilly, absolute Rolls Royce in midfield, a Rolls Royce. Rio Tati at his peak. And now, you know, the guys he's been left to work with is nowhere near that quality. So I think he's definitely suffering as a result of that. I think his influence has waned on the European stage. I really saw him, you know, it just looked a bit out of sorts in Europe this season. I think again that's because he's trying to cover from his teammates. You know, he's looking about where the loose ball's going to fall, and he's almost second guessing where the ball's going to fall because he's covering for them, because he knows there's going to be a mistake, they're going to lose possession. So I've noticed that a lot. I just don't feel there's enough muscle in midfield either to help him. And yeah, essentially they're just powder puffing and weak in that midfield. I think it's just not helped Callum McGregor at all. But what I would say is I think fans need to be careful what they wish for. I think they'll only realise what they've got with Callum McGregor when he's gone. Brendan Rodgers, who I would say is an elite level manager, I remember him saying he's like a coach on the field. You know, he orchestrates everything, he pulls the strings, and there's no many of them around. There's no many also captains that carry respect and influence that Callum McGregor does at Celtic. You saw him at the end of the game with galling the players for a huddle, for a kind of rallying call. You know, we see the passion every time he speaks in front of the press, whether that be after a defeat, a draw, or a win. You know, we see the passion in his face at full time when he's addressing the fans as well. This is a guy who gets it, and I wouldn't be rushing him out the door at all. Sure, his best days might be behind him. They might be behind him. Age catches up with his own, fortunately. And Callum McGregor's, his peak years are probably beyond him now. But I think he's still got a role to play. I absolutely do. Looking on to next season as well, I still think he can form the kind of spine of this new Celtic side next season. I don't think the new manager will be in a rush either to let a guy of his experience and his calibre go out the door either. There's talk about Brendan Rodgers perhaps eyeing a reunion with him in Saudi Arabia. From what I understand, that's not going to happen. That's not true. So where would Callum McGregor go from here? So he's also under contract for another 2 years. So unless it was a mega money offer on the table from a club in Saudi or elsewhere, I don't think Callum McGregor would want to leave Celtic either. He's probably got his eyes set in more history as well. Look at James Forrest being the most decorated player of all time at Celtic. Callum McGregor's not far behind him, so he might fancy himself overtaking that tally as well. So there's just I feel overall I do feel that he's been very harshly kind of judged this season. I think fans are quick to jump to verdicts on him as soon as he hits a kind of a bad vein of form or he struggles a wee bit because of the heights that he's and the standards that he's set throughout the course of his career. But for me, it's no coincidence that Callum McGregor begins to struggle just as, you know, Celtic as a club, as a team are struggling. Yeah,
I would go as far as to say that not only is Callum McGregor not to blame for a lot of the midfield problems, I think he's held Celtic together a lot of the times this season and in previous campaigns. And in the midfield as well, while we're on it, Benjamin Nygren, he hasn't scored now in 5 games. The talk about Nygren used to be, up till recently, was, listen, he scores goals, he needs to be in the team. If he's no longer scoring goals, do you consider taking him out, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing we're talking about, the midfield three at the minute and how it's not, it kind of looks dysfunctional. I'm not funny about if Benjamin Nygren's not producing goals, then
who else is?
But also if he's not scoring, it's almost like sometimes it's like an empty jersey in the middle of the park. Yeah. He just doesn't do anywhere near enough. Doesn't contribute anywhere near enough as he should. But his numbers are outstanding this season. Nobody can take that away from him. And do you know what? I know there's obviously, he's been linked with a kind of big money summer move elsewhere, and Celtic might be able to hold out for 15-20 million if they can. I think they'll take it. And you know, as I say, he can't fault his goals and his assists, but when you look at his overall game, you know, punters that are watched him every week, it's just not doing anywhere enough, and that's what I mean. But Celtic being overrun in the midfield, they need more energy, they need more They need a lot more dynamism in the middle of the park as well, and I just don't think Benjamin Nygren really brings that. So, but the thing is, if you take him out the team, then like you say, Dan, who's going to be scoring the goals? The guy scored 19, so there's no other real talisman in that team. Kelechi Iheanacho got Celtic out of jail, get at Dens Park, but he's still getting up to match sharpness. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, he was the one that scored the winner at the weekend, but again, for me, he's still way short of the of hitting peak fitness as well. So it's just a glaring issue that Celtic have got, is that they don't have anybody to score the goals, and if you take Nygren out of that team, then you're reducing your chances even more.
Would you keep him
That's
in
the
then?
conundrum. That's the conundrum. Yeah, I think you just got to keep him. I think you've just got to keep him in for the remaining 5 games of the season, because I think if you take him out, then your goal sources are even are even fewer. I just don't know who else is going to do it. I mean, you look at it, I think Yang is the next top goal scorer with 9 goals. So I think Benjamin Nygren is the only guy that's won double figures this season, which is absolutely crazy.
That is startling. That's mad.
So yeah, it's a conundrum. In an ideal world, you probably would take him out if you could rely on your strikers scoring goals, but unfortunately for Celtic, you can't. For that reason, I would keep him in. But he's going to be playing at the World Cup this summer as well for Sweden, and he played a big part in getting them there over the last international break. He had 2 assists. So they probably will be interested in him this summer. And if Celtic can get in the region of that kind of 15-20 million pound ballpark, then I think they'll sell him.
Oh, I think they'd bite the hand off for that, but I'm not convinced they'll get that offer. But who knows? Who knows? The money in football's so mad. You never know. Excuse me. Right, looking ahead, Ryan, obviously it's the semi-final against St Mirren at the weekend. I don't think by any means it's a given. We all know what happened when Celtic faced St Mirren at Hampden last time. Having said that, I would still fancy Celtic to get over the line and get into the Scottish Cup final. Do you share my optimism?
Yeah, I mean, you'd expect Celtic to go through, but the same token, you wouldn't be surprised if St Mirren do another number on Celtic at Hampden. The way Celtic are playing, again, if they're going to get through, it probably just by a goal. Or do you know what? It could be extra time and penalties.
I wouldn't be surprised, I wouldn't be shocked.
And also, you're looking at the pitch as well. I'm not sure what the forecast is this weekend, but Falkirk and Dunfermline are obviously playing first. And we know what like Celtic are, and it's a dodgy pitch, like maybe not to the extremes of Tannadice, the sandpit of Tannadice, but Celtic clearly prefer to play in a flat surface. So if the pitch isn't in great condition, that could also perhaps play it more into St Mirren's hands as well. So, look, you'd expect them to get through. I'm sure fans would love to see Martin O'Neill get his hands on the Scottish Cup, if not the title, come the end of the season. And with all due respect to the teams that are remaining, St Mirren, Dunfermline and Falkirk, you'd expect Celtic are obviously going to be heavy favourites to win that trophy again come the summer. So yeah, you'd expect Celtic to get through, but I don't think it's going to be an easy afternoon, Dan. I think it could be another hard slog for Celtic.
A very tense affair, I think. I agree with you there. And I do think, though, it'll be a Neil Lennon, Martin O'Neill Scottish Cup final, which would be a bit surreal, actually. It'd be a bit like a fever dream, to be honest, but I do think that's going to end up happening.
I mean, football it's just amazing. It's the greatest sport in the world. How often do we see these storylines? It's written in the stars, isn't it? But mate, after saying that, I bet it'll be probably John McGlynn and
I focus on on the league. It got up on the screen there if you're watching the post-split fixtures. One guy, Ryan, that we've not mentioned today, and I think Saturday will come too soon for him, but one guy that I think could have a say in these post-split fixtures, and I don't know why, it's not based on a lot, but it's Callum Osmond. I know he's been back out in the grass. I know that I think he's quite close to being back involved. And I just think he was really impressive before he got injured. And the fact that we've mentioned that, ad nauseum here, Celtic don't have almost any sort of striker. I think him coming back in with his pace, his enthusiasm, his eagerness to win things, I think he could end up being a really surprising sort of kingmaker in Celtic's season.
It's an interesting one. I think he could be involved in a bounce game this week. along with Celtic's kind of other injured players that have just come kind of on the way back to recovery, including Arnie Engels, who obviously played at the weekend, made his comeback at the weekend. So the problem is Celtic will just need to manage it very carefully, because I think the hamstring injury he had was one of the kind of the worst ones you could have possibly have sustained. So it was a really bad hamstring. But I remember I've seen him, walking about Lennoxtown a few times when I've been up there this season, and he was always confident he'd be able to get back this season, and he's clearly desperate to make a contribution. Like you say, his enthusiasm, the energy, the pace that he brought to that front line, he offered something different, and it was just such a shame that he pulled up injured against Mitchell, because I think he performed well that night as well. I think he won the penalty, didn't he?
Aye.
So and Martin O'Neill as well. He's a huge Martin O'Neill's a huge fan of the boy. So if Martin O'Neill likes you as a player, then you must be doing something right. So look, Celtic need all the help they can get. He'll bring something different to Celtic's front line between now and the end of the season. I think pace is the obvious one. And if he can score a few goals, and he's got a chance to make himself an absolute hero, and obviously stake a claim for the jersey next season as well. So it'll be interesting. I just wonder how much of a contribution he'll make. I wonder how many minutes he'll play, just because of the severity of the injury that he had. But he's had a long time to get back fit now, and hopefully for the boy himself, he can rediscover that form that made he scored that goal against Rangers at Hampden, didn't he?
Right.
So if he can reach those heights, then Celtic could be on to a winner.
And just very finally, Ryan, before we wrap up, I put everyone, whether it's here or on Hotline Live, on the spot when I've not seen them in a few days. Put up the fixtures there again, and the league table. Where do you stand now with the title race? I mean, I remember a few weeks ago you kind of said that you didn't think Celtic had it in them. I, for what it's worth, fully agreed with you. But then I sort of kind of came back round, and the truth is, I honestly don't know where I stand now. It's impossible to predict. I would give Rangers and Hearts the edge, but I don't know, those two games at home for Celtic, and I know Hearts and Rangers have won at Celtic Park already this season, but Celtic Park, it'll be like a European night, it'll be absolutely packed, the atmosphere will be intense. All I'm saying is, I guess, in a roundabout way, is I don't think it's over for Celtic yet.
No, it's definitely not over. And I remember being on the podcast with Ryan Stevenson after his hard-hitting column where he said that Hearts would only be 2 wins away from the title. And I made the point that you just can never count Celtic out. You look back to the 2007-2008 season under Gordon Strachan, they were 6 points behind Rangers, having played 2 games more, with 7 games left to play. They were written off. I was reading back to some of the articles. I won't mention any names, but quite a few people had completely written off their chances, said Celtic's title hopes are finished, dead and buried, terms like that. And then, the rise from the ashes, if you like, and Gordon Strachan leads them to 3 in a row by winning the remaining 7 games. So after falling to defeat at Dundee United, there's 7 league games remaining. They've won 2. They've got another 5 cup finals to go. And if Celtic can win all 5 of them, then I think they'll win the title. Everybody's talking about Rangers and Hearts, the home games, quite, and it's understandable. They're the 2 title rivals. But for me, Easter Road is going to be an extremely, worrying fixture for Celtic. Yep. This is a stadium which it's been a bit of a hoodoo ground for Celtic in recent years. I think Brendan Rodgers only won there once.
I think
Celtic manager
in
his entire Celtic career. So that's always been a really, really difficult venue for Celtic. I think they won there earlier on this season, but that has got to be, they've got to treat all 5 fixtures the same, which they will, with the same respect. Motherwell will be obviously going to be tricky as well. But for me, that Hibs game really sticks out. And if Celtic can get by that after and they beat Falkirk, you'd probably expect Hearts and Rangers to slip up at some point. And obviously Hearts and Rangers were playing each other before the Glasgow derby at Parkhead as well. So there's going to be points spilled between them at some point. So if Celtic can win those 2 games, then I think they're going to put themselves into a right good position ahead of that Rangers game in the is it 10th of May?
Yep. Is it 10th of May?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. 10th of May.
Yep, Sunday the 10th of May. So look, it's the thing is the favourites chop and change every single weekend. As soon as if one team's, I mean, the thing is that's only the second time this season that Celtic, Rangers, and Hearts have all won the same weekend.
I know, that's extraordinary, isn't it?
It just shows you that for me there's going to be more twists and turns to come. I think as long as Celtic can win their next 2 games to put themselves in a right good position and build, and the key word for me is build momentum going into to the Rangers game, which could potentially make or break the season. Because if it, depending on results, if it comes down to the last game of the season, it could be all over. But then Hearts might already have the title in the bag, or vice versa. It might be down just to Hearts and Rangers, with Celtic obviously 3 points adrift at the top at the minute. So for me, they just need to concentrate on themselves. They need to, as I say, they definitely need more firepower. They need to convert their chances a lot more. But if they can keep winning, then they absolutely they can get over the line. You just can't count Celtic out. So for me, I'm going back Celtic to win the league. I know a lot of people don't fancy them, but I've said it for the last couple of weeks that I've just got a sneaky suspicion that Martin Neil might just do it. Could be completely wrong. I know obviously Hearts and Rangers are most people's picks now, but they're not playing well, but at the minute they're just getting by, and I think if they can start building momentum against Falkirk and then win that game at Hibs, I think that they could be in the driving seat.
Well, look, whatever happens in the title race in the coming weeks, we'll be here to cover it all on the Record Celtic podcast, brought to you by NordVPN. But for now, Ryan, I think that brings us to the end of this week's show. It's always an absolute pleasure.
Always good fun, Dan. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching and listening at home. And we'll be back next week. Cheers.